The telegram arrived on a Tuesday with 6 words that would save her life. Store available. Montana Territory. Come immediately. Eleanor Hayes's hands trembled as she read it for the 3rd time. Behind her, through the thin mercantile walls, she could hear her brother-in-law's voice rising angry, insistent, threatening. He wanted the store. He wanted everything. And after 3 years of whispers and manipulation, he was dangerously close to getting it. She had 24 hours before the bank meeting. 24 hours before she lost everything Thomas had left her. The business, her independence, her future. Montana was 3,000 miles from judgment. From debt collectors. From men who thought widows were easy prey. Eleanor was 30 years old, and she had nothing left to lose. 6 weeks later, the stagecoach door opened onto a landscape so brutal it stole her breath. Timber Creek wasn't a town. It was a threat. One street. Buildings that looked like they might collapse. Mountains that seemed to be waiting for her to fail. The mercantile stood at the end of the street like a broken promise. Lord have mercy, she whispered. The driver looked concerned. You sure about this? Was she? She'd spent every penny on a building she'd never seen. No way back. No safety net. Just this, a gamble that might destroy her or save her. I'm sure. But she wasn't. Not even a little. Mrs. Hayes. 3 women materialized like crows, dressed in severe black and gray. The leader's smile was sharp enough to cut. We're the welcoming committee. We weren't expecting someone so young. The pause before young said everything. They'd been expecting someone grateful. Malleable. Easy to control. Eleanor had learned something in 3 years of fighting for her life. Never show weakness to predators. I'm 30, and I've been running a mercantile since I was 22. She met the woman's gaze without blinking. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. She walked away before they could respond, feeling their eyes on her back like knives. The mercantile's interior was worse than she'd feared. Mouse droppings. Rust. The smell of decay. For one terrifying moment, Eleanor thought she might actually cry. Then she remembered her brother-in-law's face when she told him she was leaving. The shock. The rage. The certainty that she'd fail and come crawling back. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. 3 days later, she was scrubbing windows when a shadow fell across her work. Store's not open yet. She didn't turn around. Didn't come to shop. The voice made her spine straighten deep, rough, carrying the kind of authority that didn't need to be loud. When she turned, she found a man who looked like the mountains themselves, hard, weathered, unmovable. Daniel Thornton. I run the Double C Ranch. His eyes assessed her the way she imagined he assessed horses looking for weakness, for breaking points. I had a deal with Sam Wright. 60-40 beef split, my favor. Eleanor had dealt with men like this her whole life. Men who expected compliance. Who thought a widow would be grateful for any arrangement. Sam Wright is dead, she said pleasantly. I'm not. 50-50, twice weekly delivery, or I find another supplier. His eyes narrowed dangerously. You just got here. You don't know this territory. You need me more than I need you. Do I? She crossed her arms. Because I count 3 ranches within delivery distance. And I'm betting at least one of them would love a chance to undercut your pricing. It was a complete bluff. She had no idea how many ranches existed or who ran them. But something flickered in his expression: surprise, maybe respect. 50-50, he said finally. Twice weekly. When they shook hands, his grip was firm, warm, and lasted 1 heartbeat longer than necessary. Welcome to Timber Creek, Mrs. Bennett. This time he almost smiled. Fair warning, this town buries newcomers. Then it's lucky, she said softly, that I'm already dead. His smile faded. For just a moment, she saw something in his eyes: recognition. Understanding. The look of someone who knew exactly what it meant to survive things that should have killed you. Then he tipped his hat and left, and Sarah discovered she was shaking. 2 weeks of hell followed. Customers who forgot to pay. Shipments that arrived damaged. Whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Sarah had expected resistance. She hadn't expected sabotage. On the 14th day, James Callahan arrived with his beef delivery and a little girl with dark braids and eyes too old for her face. "My daughter, Emma." He said it like a challenge. "Emma, this is Mrs. Bennet. Pleased to meet you, Emma's curtsy was perfect, but her eyes were hungry for what, Sarah couldn't tell. The beef was excellent. The price was fair. But when James demanded cash payment immediately, Sarah saw the trap. "I pay Friday. All accounts together." "That's not how Sam." "I'm not Sam." She held his gaze. "And if immediate cash payment is your term, I'll need to reconsider our arrangement entirely." They stared at each other like gunslingers. Emma watched with wide eyes. Finally, James laughed a sharp, surprised sound. "Friday's fine. Can I look around, Pa? Please?" Emma's voice cracked with longing. Something in Sarah's chest twisted. She knew that hunger. That desperation for something beyond the narrow life you'd been given. "Of course," she said, before James could respond. Emma moved through the store like she was walking through a dream, touching everything with reverent fingers: ribbons, buttons, a display of books. "She doesn't get to town often," James said quietly. "Closer than before. Close enough that Sarah could smell leather and smoke and something wild. Since her mother died 4 years ago." He stopped. Pain flickered across his face, raw and unguarded. "I'm sorry," Sarah said. "Don't be." His voice was harsh. "Death doesn't care about sorry." "No," Sarah agreed, thinking of James, her dead husband, and the relief she'd felt at his funeral. "It really doesn't." Their eyes met. And Sarah realized with a jolt that was half terror, half something else entirely. This man understood her. Actually understood her. "Pa!" Emma held up a peppermint stick. "Could I?" "That's Mrs. Bennet's decision," James said, voice carefully neutral. "Sarah made a choice that would change everything. Help me unload freight tomorrow, and you can have 2 peppermint sticks." Emma's face transformed joy so pure it was painful to witness. But James's expression went cold. "My daughter doesn't need charity." "It's not charity, Mr. Callahan. It's employment." Sarah kept her voice level. "Unless you're saying she's not capable of honest work." It was a perfectly laid trap. Frontier families prided themselves on capability. Suggesting Emma couldn't handle work was an insult to them both. "She's capable," he said through gritted teeth. "Emma, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Do exactly what Mrs. Bennet says." After they left, Sarah stood in the quiet store and wondered what she'd just started. And why her heart was racing. Emma came back. Not just the next day, but every day after that. And as the girls sorted cans and organized shelves and chatted about books and dreams, Sarah discovered something dangerous. She was falling in love with this child. "Pa says you're brave," Emma confided one afternoon. "He told Uncle Ray that most women would have run back east by now." "Your pa said that?" "Well, Uncle Ray said you were probably crazy. But Pa said," Emma's voice dropped to a whisper, "he said you reminded him of Mama. Before she got sick." Sarah's hands stilled on the fabric she was folding. "Emma, did your father tell you to say that?" "No, I heard them talking." The girl looked up with those 2 old eyes. "Pa doesn't talk about Mama much. But when he does, his voice sounds different. Softer. Like maybe he could still smile if he remembered how." That night, Sarah lay awake in her room above the store and thought about James Callahan. About the way he looked at his daughter. The way he'd looked at her. About how dangerous it would be to want things she'd sworn she'd never want again. But want them she did. Through the brutal winter, through twice-weekly deliveries where James lingered longer each time. Through Saturday afternoons when Emma wrote stories and Sarah taught her that words could be weapons or wings, depending on how you used them. "She's got talent," Sarah told James one evening. "Real talent. I'd like to tutor her. Develop her writing." She expected resistance. She didn't expect rage. "No." His voice was flat, final. "Emma doesn't need tutoring. She needs someone to see her gifts. She needs to survive." The words exploded out of him. "This is Montana territory, Mrs. Bennett. Dreams don't survive here. People barely survive here. I won't let you fill her head with fantasies that'll get crushed the first time life gets hard. Life is hard. Sarah's voice rose to match his. It's brutal and unfair, and sometimes it takes everything you love. But stories, words, they're how we survive the hardness. They're how we stay human. You don't know anything about my family. I know what it's like to have someone tell you you're not enough. The confession ripped out of her. I know what it's like to be small and quiet and acceptable. And I know that if one person, just one, had told me I could be more, maybe I wouldn't have wasted 8 years of my life trying to be something I wasn't. The silence was crushing. We're done here, James said quietly. Dangerously. Emma and I won't be coming back. He left. And through the window, Sarah watched him collect his daughter, saw Emma's confused, devastated expression. The girl looked back once. Sarah raised her hand. Emma didn't wave back. 1 week of silence. No delivery. No Emma. The store felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with customers. Sarah had survived her husband's death. Her brother-in-law's threats. The journey west. 6 months of building a business from nothing. But she couldn't survive this. On the 7th day, she loaded her wagon and drove to the Double C Ranch. The ranch was beautiful, neat, well-maintained, the work of someone who poured love into land because he had nowhere else to put it. James emerged from the barn, saw her, and stopped. Mr. Callahan. You missed your delivery. Found another buyer. Did you? She climbed down. Or did you run away because I made you feel something you weren't ready to feel? His jaw clenched. You need to leave. I came to apologize. I don't want your apology. For hurting you. Sarah stepped closer. Not for what I said. That was true. But for making you think I was trying to take Emma from you. When really, her voice cracked. Really, I was trying to give her to you. The real her. All of her. James stared at her, chest heaving. She's different, James. And different scares you because your wife was different, wasn't she? Mary was educated, refined, probably read books and dreamed dreams. And then she died, and you decided that being different, wanting more, that killed her somehow. Don't. His voice was a warning. But it didn't kill her. Fever killed her. Random, meaningless, cruel fever. And you've spent 4 years trying to make Emma small enough to keep safe, when the only thing you're really doing is making sure she never knows who she could be. Enough. The word cracked like thunder. You think you understand? You've been here 6 months. 6 months of playing store, playing teacher, playing. I'm not playing anything. Sarah's voice broke. I'm terrified every single day that I'll fail. That this town will break me. That I'll lose everything again. But I show up anyway. I try anyway. Because the alternative is dying while you're still breathing, and I've done that, James. I've been that person. And I won't. I won't watch Emma become that too. Silence. Brutal and complete. Then, softly, Pa? Emma stood in the doorway. Tears streaked her face. Is that true? You think Mama died because she was different? James's voice cracked. No. Baby, no. Because I am different. I know I am. The girl's voice was small, breaking. I try to be what you want, but I can't stop thinking about stories. About words. About, she looked at Sarah. About being more. James dropped to his knees in the dirt. Come here. Emma ran to him, and he caught her, held her like she was the only real thing in the world. You're perfect, he whispered into her hair. Exactly as you are. Smart and strange, an asterisk so much like her star. And that terrifies me, Em. Because I couldn't save her. But I'll be damned if I lose you too. You won't lose me, Pa. Emma pulled back, and her face, God, her face was so fierce. I'm not going anywhere. But I need, she looked at Sarah again. I need to be all of me. Not just the parts that feel safe. James closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Saturday afternoons, he said hoarsely. 1 hour. Emma's squeal of joy should have lightened the moment. But James was looking at Sarah now, really looking, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care so much?" The truth sat in Sarah's throat, too big and too dangerous to speak. But she spoke it anyway. "Because you're the first people who've made me want to stay. Really stay. Not just survive." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And that terrifies me more than anything in my life ever has." James stood slowly, crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. "I've been widowed 4 years," he said quietly. "And I was certain I'd never feel anything again. That the best I could do was work until I was too tired to remember what being alive felt like." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered against her jaw. "And then you showed up." A rough laugh. "Stubborn and difficult and so damn brave it made my chest hurt. And suddenly I remembered." "Remembered what?" Sarah barely breathed. "That surviving isn't the same as living." When he kissed her, it felt like waking up. Like spring after brutal winter. Like the first breath after drowning. When they broke apart, Emma was grinning so wide Sarah thought her face might split. "Does this mean Mrs. Bennet is courting you, Pa?" "I think," James said, eyes never leaving Sarah's face, "it means I'm courting her." Finally, Emma muttered. "I've been waiting forever star." 6 months later, Sarah stood in her mercantile, their mercantile now, hers and James's together, and watched Emma help a customer find the perfect book. The telegram had promised a fresh start. It had delivered something better, a second chance. At life. At love. At becoming the person she'd been too afraid to be. James came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, pressed a kiss to her temple. "Regret it," he murmured. "Leaving everything behind for this." Sarah thought about St. Louis. About the woman she'd been, small, afraid, barely surviving. Then she looked at Emma, at the store, at the life she'd built from nothing but courage and stubbornness. Not even for a second. "Good," James said. "Because you're stuck with us now. Promise?" He turned her in his arms, kissed her slow and deep and thorough. "Promise." Outside, Montana winter howled. But inside, in the mercantile that had saved her life, Sarah Bennett Callahan was finally, impossibly, unmistakably home.